The fires had stopped spreading through the station corridors, but the smoke still hung thick in the air. Commander Hannah pressed her back against the cold metal wall and listened to the sounds of her people dying. Another explosion shook the deck beneath her feet. Another scream cut short. Another position lost. She wiped blood from her face, though she wasn't sure if it was hers or someone else's. Her uniform was torn in 3 places, and her left arm throbbed where a plasma bolt had grazed her 6 hours ago. Or was it 7? She had lost track of time somewhere between the 3rd defensive line and the 5th. "Commander, they've broken through Section 9, Tseek said beside her. The Clickrian's voice came out in rapid clicks and whistles that her translator rendered into flat, emotionless words. But Hannah could hear the despair underneath. Tseek's shell was cracked in 2 places, and green blood seeped from the wounds. "How many do we have left?" Hannah asked. 200, maybe less. The count keeps dropping. 200. They had started this morning with 3,000. The Kreshnar horde had come with 10 times that number, and they hadn't stopped coming. Wave after wave of gray-skinned warriors, each one taller and stronger than any human. Each one armed with weapons that could punch through standard armor like paper. The Kreshnar didn't take prisoners. Everyone in the galaxy knew that. They didn't negotiate. They didn't show mercy. They conquered, and they killed, and they moved on to the next target. That was why the Galactic Coalition had put Aegis Prime here, at the edge of the Vorton system. Someone had to hold the line. Hannah looked down the corridor at the faces of the soldiers who remained. There was Prism, a young lumen whose crystalline body flickered with dim, frightened light. Next to him sat 3 Thalids in their environment suits, their tentacles hanging limp with exhaustion. A dozen other species, all that remained of a once proud garrison. "We need to fall back to the command center," Hannah said. "We can seal the doors, buy ourselves some time." "Time for what?" Tseek asked. The question wasn't cruel, just honest. They both knew there was no rescue coming. The nearest coalition fleet was 3 systems away, fighting their own battles. The distress call Hannah had sent out hours ago had vanished into the void, probably never to be heard. "Time to make them pay for every step," Hannah said. She pushed herself to her feet, ignoring the protest from her injured arm. "Come on. Everyone who can still walk. We move now." They made it to the command center with only 2 more casualties. The heavy blast doors sealed behind them with a hiss of pressurized air. Hannah allowed herself one moment to lean against the door and catch her breath. Around her, the other survivors collapsed wherever they could find space. The command center was large, designed to hold 50 operators during normal shifts. Now, it held the last remnants of Aegis Prime's defenders. The main view screen flickered with static, showing glimpses of the battle happening throughout the station. Every screen told the same story. The Kreshnar were everywhere. "How long until they cut through the doors?" someone asked. Tseek checked his datapad. "An hour, maybe 2 if we're lucky." Hannah walked to the communications console. It was mostly dead, destroyed by an earlier attack. But one emergency channel still showed green. She keyed it open and began recording. "This is Commander Hannah of Aegis Prime Station to any coalition forces in range. We have held as long as we could. The Kreshnar control 90% of the station. We are down to 200 personnel. If anyone receives this message, please inform command that we did our duty. We held the line." She paused, then added, "And if by some miracle someone is close enough to help, we're in the main command center. But don't wait too long." She sent the message on repeat and turned back to her soldiers. They were watching her with eyes that had already accepted death. Hannah had seen that look before. In other battles, other desperate last stands. It was the look of people who had done everything they could and knew it wasn't enough. "Listen to me," she said, her voice carrying across the room. "We all knew this was a possibility when we signed up. The Kreshnar don't stop. They don't quit. But neither do we. When they come through those doors, we make them remember this day. We make them remember Aegis Prime." A few heads nodded. A few backs straightened. It wasn't much, but it was something. Young Prism raised one crystalline hand. Commander, is it true? What they say about humans? Hana blinked at the sudden change in topic. What do you mean? I've heard stories. That humans are different from the rest of us. That they don't know how to give up. That they're... Prism struggled to find the word. Crazy. Despite everything, Hana found herself smiling. I served with humans once. 5 years ago. It was a peacekeeping mission on Talos IV. Things went bad. Really bad. We were outnumbered, outgunned, completely surrounded. Every other species in our unit was ready to surrender. It was the logical choice. What did the humans do? Prism asked. They attacked, Hana said. They looked at impossible odds and decided to charge straight into them. Their commander, a man named Drake, he said something I've never forgotten. He said, "The enemy has us surrounded. Good. Now we can attack in any direction." And they did. And somehow, we won. She looked around at her soldiers. Humans have this idea that you're not beaten until you accept that you're beaten. They simply refuse to lose. It's not logical. It's not reasonable. But it works. Outside the doors, the sound of cutting torches began. The Kreshnar were here. So that's what we do, Hana said. We don't accept this. We fight like humans would fight. We make them pay. Tseek clicked his mandibles together in what Hana had learned was a Clickrian laugh. Fighting like humans. We're all going to die, so why not die crazy? Why not? Hana agreed. The soldiers began checking their weapons and preparing positions. The cutting torches grew louder. Hana stood at the front, her rifle charged and ready. She thought about that human commander, Drake, and wondered if he was still alive somewhere. She hoped someone like him would receive her message someday and know that they had held. The doors began to glow red from the heat. Any moment now, they would breach. Hana raised her rifle. The battle was over. They had lost. But no one had told them they had to accept it. 4 hours had passed since the command center doors fell. Commander Hana sat on the cold floor of the cargo bay, with her hands bound behind her back. Around her, the other survivors sat in similar positions. 147 of them left. They had made the Kreshnar pay for those missing 53 lives. The cargo bay was massive, designed to hold supplies for the entire station. Now it held only prisoners and guards. The Kreshnar had stripped them of weapons, armor, and anything else that might be useful. They sat in their torn uniforms and waited. Warlord Vex Thor walked among them like a hunter inspecting his kills. He was enormous, even for a Kreshnar, standing nearly 8 feet tall. His gray skin was marked with ritual scars, each one representing a world he had conquered. Hana counted 43 scars. You fought well, Vex Thor said in the common trade language. His voice was deep and rough. For lesser species, you showed courage. It changes nothing. But I acknowledge it. He stopped in front of Hana. You are the commander? I am, Hana said, meeting his eyes. You cost me 200 warriors. That is more than most species manage. He studied her face. Tomorrow, when the sun rises over Vorton 4, you will all be executed. Your bodies will be sent to the coalition as a message. This is what happens when you stand against the Kreshnar horde. Understood, Hana said calmly. Vex Thor seemed disappointed by her lack of reaction. He had probably expected begging or tears. He moved on, continuing his inspection of the prisoners. After he left, Tseek shifted closer to Hana. The Clickrian's shell was cracked worse than before, and his movements were slow with pain. We could try to fight, he whispered, when they come for us in the morning. With what? Hana asked quietly. Our hands are bound. They have all the weapons. We'd die in seconds. We're going to die anyway. I know, but maybe. Hana trailed off. She had been about to say something about miracles, but that seemed foolish now. The distress call had gone out hours ago. No one had come. No one was coming. Young Prism crawled over to them, his crystalline body making soft, chiming sounds. "Commander? Can you tell us more about the humans?" Several other prisoners shifted closer to listen. Hana supposed it didn't matter now. If talking about humans gave them something to think about besides their approaching execution, why not? "What do you want to know?" she asked. "Everything," Prism said. "Are they really as strong as the stories say?" Hana thought about it. "Not physically. A Kreshnar warrior is stronger than any human. A Clicrian has better armor. A Thalid can survive in environments that would kill a human instantly. Humans aren't the biggest or the strongest or the toughest. Then why are they special?" another prisoner asked. "Because they don't stop," Hana said. "I've seen humans fight with broken bones. I've seen them keep going when they should have collapsed from exhaustion hours ago. They have this thing they call stubbornness or determination. They simply refuse to quit." Quote, she remembered the mission on Talos IV more clearly now. There was this one human soldier, a woman named Kim. She took a plasma bolt to the leg that would have killed most species. The medics said she'd never walk again. 3 months later, she was back on active duty. When I asked her how, she just shrugged and said, "I decided I wasn't done yet." "That's insane," Zeke clicked. "That's human," Hana said. "They're all a little bit insane. They do things that don't make sense. They take risks that no logical being would take, and somehow, it works for them." "Do you think any of them got your distress call?" Prism asked quietly. Hana wanted to lie, to give them hope. But these soldiers deserved honesty. "I don't know. Even if they did, they're probably too far away to help." The cargo bay fell silent again. The Kreshnar guards stood by the exits, bored and confident. Why wouldn't they be? The battle was over. They had won. Tomorrow they would execute the prisoners and move on to their next conquest. Hours passed. Some prisoners slept, though Hana couldn't imagine how. She sat awake, her mind wandering through memories. Her family back home on her colony world, the academy where she had trained, the friends she had lost in various battles over the years, the human soldiers she had served with, who had taught her that logic wasn't always the answer. Somewhere deep in the station, an alarm beeped. One of the Kreshnar guards checked his datapad and frowned. He spoke into his communicator in their harsh language. After a moment, he relaxed and went back to his position. Hana had learned enough Kreshnar to understand the basics. Something about sensor glitches, damage from the battle causing false readings. Nothing to worry about. But something made her pay attention. She had spent years in space, years learning to trust her instincts. And right now, her instincts were screaming that something was wrong. Or maybe something was right. She thought about the distress call, about how far the signal could travel, about which human ships might be in range. The humans had a fleet called the Colonial Defense Force. They specialized in rapid response, but even rapid response took time. And the nearest human territory was, how far was it? 3 jumps? 4? How fast could human ships travel? She tried to remember the specifications she had read once. Humans pushed their ships harder than most species considered safe. They accepted higher risks for higher speeds. "Commander," Zik whispered. "You're smiling. Why are you smiling?" Was she? Hana hadn't realized. Just thinking about humans again. What about them? About how they defined too far away. Another alarm beeped somewhere in the station. Then another. The Kreshnar guards were getting irritated now. One of them left to investigate. He came back a few minutes later and spoke rapidly to the others. Hana caught the words for sensors and nothing there, and damaged systems. But she also caught the word for unknown. The guards were trying to look unconcerned, but Hana could see the tension in their postures now. They were checking their weapons more frequently, looking at their datapads more often. Something was making them nervous. Hana felt her heart start to beat faster. It was probably nothing. Probably just her desperate mind creating hope where none existed. The humans hadn't received the signal. Or they had received it but were too far away. Or they had received it and decided it was too dangerous to respond. That's what any logical species would do. But humans weren't logical. Tell me more about humans, Prism said. Please, I want to know. So Hana told them. She told them about human music, which somehow made people want to fight harder. She told them about human sayings like, never tell me the odds, and death or glory, and hold the line. She told them about human soldiers who would carry wounded comrades for miles rather than leave them behind. She told them about the human concept of shock troops, elite warriors who specialized in impossible missions. The other prisoners listened, and for a little while, they forgot about their execution at dawn. Outside the cargo bay, deep in the darkness of space, something moved through the void. Something fast, something angry, something human. But Hana didn't know that yet. All she had was a feeling, a tiny spark of hope that refused to die, just like a human would feel. Captain Jinho stood on the bridge of the UCMS Indomitable and watched the Vortan system grow larger on the view screen. Behind his ship, 3 destroyers kept perfect formation. The fleet had been traveling for 6 hours, at speeds that would have torn apart most alien vessels. Human crews could handle the acceleration. They trained for it. Sensor report, Jinho said. Lieutenant Yuna looked up from her station. Her face was calm. But Jinho had served with her, long enough to see the anger in her eyes. The station is heavily damaged. I'm reading Kreshnar signatures throughout. At least 3,000 hostiles. No coalition signals. They're dead? Jinho asked. Or captured. The Kreshnar don't usually take prisoners, but the distress call said 200 survivors. Yuna's fingers flew across her console. If any are still alive, they won't be for long. Kreshnar standard procedure is execution at dawn. Local dawn on Vortan 4 is in 40 minutes. 40 minutes. Jinho had known it would be close. The distress call had taken 3 hours to reach them, traveling through 3 different relay stations. Another 3 hours to get here. They were cutting it very close. Tactical analysis, Jinho said. Yuna pulled up a holographic display of the station. Kreshnar forces are spread throughout, but concentrated here, here, and here. They're confident. Most of their troops are resting or celebrating. Guards are minimal. They think the battle is over, Jinho said. It is over, Yuna replied. They won. They think they won, Jinho corrected. Big difference. He turned to the communication officer. Get me the 7th Regiment. A moment later, Sergeant Taeyang's face appeared on screen. The man looked like he had been carved from stone. Scars marked his face and neck. Souvenirs from 20 years of combat. He was checking his armor as he spoke. Captain, Taeyang said. We have 40 minutes until they start killing prisoners, Jinho said. Can you do it? Can I storm a heavily fortified space station held by 3,000 enemy soldiers with only 500 troops and no time for proper recon? Taeyang smiled. Yes, sir. It's Tuesday. Despite the situation, Jinho almost laughed. That was Taeyang. Give him an impossible mission, and he'd ask what the catch was. The prisoners are in the main cargo bay, Yuna said, forwarding the data. But you'll have to punch through multiple defensive positions to reach them. We'll go through the hull, Taeyang said, studying the station layout. 47 entry points. Hit them all at once. They won't know where to defend. You'll be outnumbered 6-1, Jinho pointed out. I've had worse. Taeyang looked directly at the camera. Sir, permission to speak freely? Granted. Those coalition soldiers held that station for 16 hours against overwhelming odds. They called for help. We're the help. We don't leave people behind. It's what makes us human. Jingyu nodded. Agreed. Begin drop pod deployment. We'll provide covering fire. Taeyang saluted and cut the connection. Through the view screen, Jinho could see the drop pods launching from the Indomitable's belly. 500 armored coffins, each containing a human shock trooper. They spread out in a precise pattern, each one targeted for a different section of the station. "The Kreshnar are detecting us," Yuna reported. "They're scrambling their forces." "Too late," Jinho said. "Weapons. Begin firing pattern Delta. I want chaos, not destruction. Hit their sensor arrays, communication nodes, and power junctions. Make them blind and confused." "Yes, sir." The Indomitable's railguns opened fire. Solid projectiles traveling at incredible speeds slammed into the station's exterior. Explosions bloomed in the void. The three destroyers added their own fire, carefully targeting systems rather than vital areas. On the Kreshnar command deck, Warlord Vexthor was probably screaming orders right now. His forces would be rushing to battle stations, trying to figure out what was happening, but they were too slow. By the time they understood the situation, it would be too late. Inside the drop pods, Sergeant Taeyang counted down the seconds until impact. Around him, his squad prepared themselves. Corporal Suman checked her demolition charges for the third time. Private Doyun tested his heavy plasma cannon. Private Nari made sure her medical supplies were secure. 30 seconds, Taeyang announced over the squad channel. "Remember the drill. Hard entry, establish perimeter, advance toward objective. No stopping, no hesitation. The Kreshnar outnumber us, but we're faster, meaner, and we don't quit." "Hoorah!" the squad responded in unison. "These coalition soldiers are counting on us. They've been waiting for help. Well, help has arrived. Let's show these Kreshnar bastards why you don't mess with humans, or their friends." The pods struck the station like meteors. Metal screamed as armored shells punched through exterior plating, through corridors, through decks. Taeyang's pod smashed into a storage area and came to a stop. The front panel exploded outward, and he emerged in full combat armor. Powered armor made humans into walking tanks. Taeyang stood 7 feet tall in the suit, with strength enough to bend steel and armor thick enough to stop most weapons. His helmet display showed his squad forming up around him, and beyond them, 46 other squads doing the same throughout the station. 3 Kreshnar guards ran around the corner, weapons raised. They were big, tough, and experienced warriors. They didn't stand a chance. Taeyang's rifle barked 3 times. 3 Kreshnar fell. The humans advanced. "Suman, blow that bulkhead," Taeyang ordered. The corporal attached a charge and stepped back. The explosion opened a hole large enough to drive a truck through. Beyond it, a corridor full of surprised Kreshnar soldiers. "Doyun, clear it." The private's heavy cannon roared. The corridor became a killing zone. The squad pushed forward. Behind them, throughout the station, 499 other humans were doing the same. The Kreshnar, who had never retreated in their entire history, suddenly found themselves facing an enemy that fought like demons. In the cargo bay, Hana heard the explosions. The Kreshnar guards were shouting into their communicators, getting contradictory orders. The prisoners looked at each other in confusion. "What's happening?" Prism asked. Hana listened to the sounds of battle getting closer. She heard weapons fire unlike anything the Kreshnar used. She heard explosions with a specific rhythm that she recognized from 5 years ago. She started to laugh. "Commander," Zeke asked, "have you lost your mind?" "Maybe," Hana said. "Or maybe I should have had more faith." She looked at the cargo bay doors. "Get ready. I think our rescue just arrived." "Rescue? We're surrounded by 3,000 Kreshnar." "I know," Hana said, still smiling. "But someone forgot to tell the humans that those are bad odds." The cargo bay doors exploded inward in a shower of metal and fire. Through the smoke, a figure emerged in powered armor, moving with deadly purpose. The Kreshnar guards raised their weapons, but the human was faster. In seconds, every guard was down. The armored figure's helmet retracted, revealing a scarred face and hard eyes. Commander Hana? Sergeant Taeyang asked. Captain Jinho sends his regards. Let's get you out of here. Behind him, his squad was cutting the prisoners' bonds and handing out captured Kreshnar weapons. Hana felt her hands come free and accepted a rifle from Private Nari. Can you fight? Taeyang asked. Hana looked at her fellow prisoners. They were wounded, exhausted, and had accepted death an hour ago. But now they were armed, and help had arrived. And the impossible had happened. She thought about everything she had told them about humans, about never giving up, about refusing to quit. Hell yes, we can fight, Hana said. Taeyang's scarred face split into a grin. Outstanding. Follow me. We've got a station to take back. The corridors of Aegis Prime had become a war zone again, but this time the battle was different. Commander Hana ran behind Sergeant Taeyang's squad. Her newly acquired rifle clutched tight in her hands. Around her, the freed coalition prisoners moved in a tight formation, following the humans' lead. Taeyang moved like death itself. His powered armor made almost no sound despite its size. He would pause at a corner, check his tactical display, then signal his squad forward. Every movement was precise. Every shot found its target. The Kreshnar warriors who had seemed so unstoppable hours ago now fell back in confusion. Contact, 12 o'clock, Corporal Suman reported. Ahead, a group of Kreshnar soldiers were setting up a defensive position. They had heavy weapons and good cover. In a normal fight, it would take an hour and heavy casualties to dislodge them. Taeyang studied the position for exactly 3 seconds. Suman, flashbangs. Doyun, suppressing fire. Everyone else, we charge on my mark. Charge? Tseek clicked nervously beside Hana. That's suicide. Tseek. That's human, Hana corrected. The flashbangs went off, filling the corridor with blinding light. Doyun's heavy cannon roared, forcing the Kreshnar to keep their heads down. And then, Taeyang was moving, sprinting directly at the enemy position with his squad right behind him. The Kreshnar opened fire. But the human armor took the hits and kept coming. Taeyang reached their barricade and simply went through it, his armored fist smashing through the cover. His squad followed, and in seconds, the position was overrun. Hana and the other prisoners caught up to find the corridor secure. Several Kreshnar lay dead or unconscious. The humans were already moving forward. Why do they fight like that? Prism asked, his crystalline body flickering with confused light. They are using tactics, Hana explained, breathing hard as they jogged to keep up. Human tactics. Attack constantly. Never let the enemy recover. Keep them off balance. It's insane, but it works. Private Nari dropped back to check on the coalition soldiers. Anyone hurt? No? Good. Stay close to us. When we tell you to move, you move. When we tell you to take cover, you take cover. Got it? They all nodded. Nari might be young, but she had the same hard edge as the rest of the human soldiers. These weren't peacekeepers or garrison troops. These were shock troopers, the humans who specialized in impossible missions. The squad reached an intersection where 3 corridors met. Taeyang's tactical display showed Kreshnar forces converging from all directions. They were trapped. We've got company, Taeyang announced calmly. 50 plus coming from the north. Another 30 from the east. 20 from the south. That's over 100 enemies, Tseek said. We only have 10 humans and some wounded coalition soldiers. Yeah, they probably should have brought more, Taeyang said. He actually sounded disappointed by the odds. Sumin, seal the north corridor. Make it permanent. Doyun, you've got the east. Nari, help the coalition soldiers set up firing positions on the south corridor. Everyone else with me. The squad moved into position with practiced efficiency. Suman placed charges on the north corridor and blew it, bringing down tons of rubble that would take hours to clear. That left only 2 attack vectors. The Kreshnar hit the east corridor first. 20 warriors charged forward. confident in their numbers and strength. Doyun waited until they were close, then opened fire with his cannon. The front rank went down, and the ones behind stumbled over their bodies. Taeyang and his squad moved forward into the chaos, using close-quarters combat, where the Kreshnar's reach advantage didn't matter. Hana watched in fascination. The Kreshnar were individually stronger than humans, but it didn't matter. The humans fought with a speed and aggression that overwhelmed their opponents. They didn't fight fair. They used every dirty trick, every advantage, every weakness they could find. One Kreshnar warrior managed to grab Taeyang's armor, trying to tear it apart with brute strength. Taeyang simply drew his sidearm and shot him point-blank in the face. Another warrior tried to flank Sumin, only to have her spin around and hit him with an explosive charge at close range. The Kreshnar, from the south corridor, attacked while the humans were engaged in the east. This was the moment when tactics should have won. The humans were flanked, outnumbered, caught in a crossfire. Taeyang just laughed. "Coalition forces, this is your fight," he called out. "Show them what you learned." Hana felt something shift inside her. The human had just given them permission to fight like humans. No careful defensive position. No measured response. Just pure, aggressive violence. She raised her rifle and charged. The other coalition soldiers followed her lead. Six scuttled forward on his insect legs, using his natural armor to absorb shots while returning fire. Prism used his crystalline body to refract laser bolts back at the enemy. The Thalids worked together, their tentacles grabbing weapons and opponents with equal efficiency. It was messy. It was chaotic. It was nothing like proper military doctrine. It was human. And it worked. The Kreshnar in the south corridor broke. They actually turned and ran. Hana had never heard of Kreshnar warriors retreating before, but they were doing it now. The humans had taught them fear. "All units, this is Taeyang." The sergeant called over his communicator. "Cargo bay is secure, and we're advancing to the command center. Status report." The responses came in from all over the station. Every squad was reporting similar stories. The Kreshnar were falling back. Some positions were being abandoned entirely. The humans were pushing forward on all fronts. "How is this possible?" Zeke asked as they advanced down another corridor. 3,000 Kreshnar against 500 humans. "The math doesn't work." "You're thinking about it wrong," Hana said. She was starting to understand now. It's not about numbers. The Kreshnar thought the battle was over. They had won. In their minds. So when the humans showed up and refused to accept that victory, it broke their confidence. They're not fighting soldiers who believe they can win. They're fighting soldiers who believe they've already lost, but won't admit it. "That's a psychological advantage," Zeke agreed, "but it still shouldn't be enough." "It is when you fight like humans," Hana said. "Watch them. They don't hesitate. They don't doubt. They see an obstacle, and they go through it. They see bad odds, and they ignore them. It's not just confidence. It's absolute conviction that they will win, because they refuse to lose." They reached the command center to find it already under attack by 2 other human squads. The Kreshnar had fortified it heavily, turning it into a fortress. But the humans were using the same tactic they used everywhere else. Overwhelming aggression. Taeyang coordinated with the other squad leaders. "We hit them from 3 sides simultaneously. No warning, no negotiations. On my mark. 3, 2, 1, go." The doors blew open. The walls blew open. The ceiling blew open. The humans came from every direction at once, and the Kreshnar defenders simply couldn't respond fast enough. Warlord Vex Thor stood in the center of the command center, his weapon raised. He was a terrifying sight, covered in scars and battle honors. But when Taeyang walked toward him in full armor, the warlord actually took a step back. "You've lost," Taeyang said simply. "Surrender or die. We outnumber you across the entire sector." Vex Thor snarled. "You may take this station, but we will destroy you." "Yeah. We've heard that before, Taeyang said. Hasn't worked yet. 3 other human soldiers moved up beside him. Vex Thor looked at them, then at his remaining warriors, then back at the humans. Hana could see the calculation in his eyes. He was trying to figure out if he could win. You can't, she called out. We learned that the hard way. You can't beat humans because they don't follow the rules. They don't know when to quit. Save your warriors. Surrender. Vex Thor stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, 6 hours after the human assault began, Commander Hana stood on the bridge of the UCMS Indomitable and looked out at the damaged station. Aegis Prime was scarred and broken, but it was still standing. More importantly, it was back in Coalition hands. Captain Jinho stood beside her, reviewing reports on a datapad. Final casualty count is in. 87 of our troops wounded. 12 killed in action. The Kreshnar lost over 2,000, with another 500 captured. Your coalition forces lost 6 more during the fighting. Hana closed her eyes briefly, thinking of those 6. They had survived the original battle, only to fall during the rescue. But they had died fighting, not executed in a cargo bay. That had to count for something. Your people fought well, Jinho continued. Sergeant Taeyang said you charged a Kreshnar position armed with nothing but a rifle and determination. He was impressed. That's not easy to do. Well, therefore, Jinho continued. Well, Taeyang. Jinho continued. I learned from the best, Hana said. 5 years ago, I watched human soldiers do impossible things. Today, I finally understood why. It's not that you're stronger or smarter. You just refuse to accept defeat. Jinho smiled slightly. That's part of it. The other part is simpler. Someone called for help. We answered. That's what decent people do. Most species calculate the risk first, Hana pointed out. You were outnumbered 6 to 1. The logical choice was to let us die and preserve your forces for battles you could win. Logic is useful, Jinho agreed. But it's not everything. Sometimes you have to do what's right, even when it's not smart. Especially when it's not smart. Lieutenant Yuna approached with another report. Sir, we're receiving communication from the Kreshnar fleet. They want to negotiate. Negotiate? Hana asked in surprise. The Kreshnar don't negotiate. They do now, Yuna said with satisfaction. Apparently losing an entire occupation force to 500 humans has made them reconsider their tactics. They're requesting a ceasefire and prisoner exchange. Jinho looked at Hana. What do you think, Commander? I think Warlord Vex Thor is probably explaining to his superiors how he lost a station he had already conquered, Hana said. And I think the Kreshnar High Command is realizing that humans are more dangerous than they calculated. Good, Jinho said. Let them think about that. Yuna, tell them we'll negotiate. But only on our terms. They withdraw from the Vorton system completely. They return all coalition prisoners. And they pay reparations for the damage to this station. They'll never agree to all of that, Yuna said. Then we'll keep their warlord and their 500 soldiers, Jinho said. Their choice. Yuna smiled and went to send the message. Hana found herself admiring the captain's confidence. He wasn't bluffing. If the Kreshnar refused, he would absolutely keep their people and continue fighting. That was the human way. Come on, Jinho said. There's someone who wants to meet you. He led her to the medical bay, where the wounded from both sides were being treated. Human doctors were working on Kreshnar soldiers alongside coalition. Wounded. No one was being left to suffer, enemy or friend. Sergeant Taeyang was sitting on a medical bed while Private Nari worked on a cut across his arm. His armor was stacked in the corner, showing blast marks and scratches. Commander Hana, Taeyang said when he saw her. Good to see you on your feet. How are your people? Tired? Grateful? Alive? Hana sat down on the bed next to him. I wanted to thank you. If you hadn't come, we came, Taeyang said simply. That's what matters. You held that station for 16 hours against impossible odds. You earned the rescue. Still, I have to ask, why risk so much for people you don't even know? Taeyang thought about it for a moment. Because today, it was you who needed help. Tomorrow, it might be us. The galaxy is a dangerous place. We all have to watch out for each other, or the bastards like the Kreshnar will pick us off one by one. He stood up, testing his arm. Besides, you fought like a human back there. That charging attack on the South Corridor? That was crazy, and brave, and exactly what needed to happen. You've got the spirit. You just needed someone to show you it was okay to use it. Hana felt something warm in her chest. Pride, maybe? Or belonging. Captain Jinho mentioned you're staying in this sector for a while. To help rebuild defenses. That's right. The Coalition Council asked for human military advisors. We're going to show other species how to fight like we do. I want to volunteer, Hana said. The words came out before she fully realized she had made the decision. But once she said them, she knew they were right. To serve with human forces. To learn your tactics properly. Taeyang looked at Captain Jinho, who had been listening from the doorway. The captain nodded. Think you can keep up? Taeyang asked. I'll die trying, Hana said. That's the spirit, Taeyang laughed. 3 days later, Hana stood in the rebuilt command center of Aegis Prime. The station was still damaged, but engineers from a dozen species were working around the clock to repair it. The Kreshnar had agreed to all of the human demands, withdrawing their forces and returning prisoners. Apparently, the High Command had decided that fighting humans wasn't worth the cost. Young Prism approached her with his crystalline body shining bright with excitement. Commander, is it true? You're joining the human military? As an advisor and liaison, Hana confirmed. I'll be working with Sergeant Taeyang's unit, teaching other coalition forces what I learned. Can you teach me? Prism asked eagerly. How to fight like a human, Hana smiled. It's not about the specific moves or tactics. It's about the mindset. Humans don't give up because they don't believe in impossible situations. They think every problem has a solution if you're willing to pay the price. But how do you learn that? Prism asked. By deciding to, Hana said. That's the secret. It's not a special ability. It's a choice. Every human makes that choice, every day. They choose to keep going when it would be easier to quit. They choose to help when it would be safer to hide. They choose to fight when logic says they should surrender. She looked around the command center at the mixed crew of humans and coalition species working together. The humans didn't save us because they're stronger or smarter. They saved us because when we called for help, they decided that was enough reason to risk everything. Six scuttled over, his shell now repaired and shining. The Coalition Council wants to give you a medal, Commander. The Star of Valor. Very prestigious. I don't need a medal, Hana said. I was just doing my job. That's very human of you. Seek clicked with amusement. The humans are refusing medals too. Captain Jinho said they were just doing what anyone should do. Hana laughed. Maybe we're all learning from each other. That night, she stood in the observation deck and watched the stars. The human fleet was still in orbit, but they would leave soon for their next mission. There would always be another crisis, another battle, another impossible situation that needed the human touch. She thought about the battle for Aegis Prime, about how they had fought and died and refused to quit, about how the humans had come when no one else could, turning defeat into victory through sheer stubborn determination. The galaxy was learning a lesson that would reshape the balance of power. The Kreshnar horde, which had never known defeat, was withdrawing and negotiating. Other aggressive empires were reconsidering their expansion plans. And species across the coalition were asking for human military advisors. It wasn't because humans were invincible. They weren't. 12 of them had died taking back Aegis Prime. 87 more had been wounded. But they had come anyway. Knowing the risks. Because it was the right thing to do. Sergeant Taeyang found her in the observation deck. Captain says we ship out in 6 hours. You ready? Yes, Hana said. I'm ready. Good. I should warn you, though. We don't get the easy missions. They send us to the places where the situation is impossible. And the odds are terrible. Action. Sounds perfect, Hana said. Taeyang grinned. Yeah, I thought you'd say that. You know what the unofficial motto of the shock troops is? What? The battle is never over until we say it is. Hana thought about that. About how they had been defeated and waiting for execution, and then the humans had arrived and simply refused to accept that outcome. About how the impossible had become possible because someone decided it would be. I like that, she said. You'll fit right in, Taeyang said. They stood together, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, someone else was probably sending a distress call right now. Someone else was facing impossible odds and preparing for defeat. Someone else needed help. And somewhere, human ships were already changing course, already accelerating to dangerous speeds, already preparing to answer that call. Because that's what humans did. The battle was never over until they said it was. And humanity had a very different definition of when a battle was truly finished.